Welcome in to Check the Mic, Wednesday episode. Steve Palazzolo and Sam Monson. We're live on YouTube as always. I have always said the Wednesday show is my favorite, Sam. But especially this week.
Why?
Bit of a reunion. We've got the great and the late Mike Renner.
The late, great Michael Renner.
Late, great Mike Renner on the show at some point. 11-ish. We told him 10:50 to make sure we get him by then.
Formerly, of course, once part of this show. Once part of the
PFF NFL podcast.
It's a legacy. You know, it's like like the Browns having rights to the old Browns. You know what I mean?
Oh, I got you.
Still the Browns.
It's still our show.
Still our show.
It counts in the record book?
Yeah.
That Renner's a friend of the show, that he's been on this.
Renner's hosting duty for this show is part of our legacy.
What would happen? How would we do like retro uniforms if we were? It doesn't matter.
No.
But yeah, Renner used to be a part of the show. We're going to be talking rookie QBs and wide receivers. We're going to review that crazy Monday Night Football ending in Falcons-Eagles game. Talk a little 2-0, 0-2 teams, who we're believing in, who we're not believing in. Also have some big news at the top here. We have new friends that you're going to be learning all about in the coming weeks over at Prize Picks, who are going to be a big part of the show moving forward here.
Going to be our presenting sponsor.
Yeah.
Very exciting news.
So we appreciate Prize Picks. We're going to be talking all about them in the coming weeks and beyond, and helps keep the lights on here. Helps
Absolutely
us pay the
does.
rent bill to PFF and everything that we're doing. So appreciate Prize Picks,
and obviously be able to afford quality guests like Michael Renner.
We can afford quality guests. I mean, it opens up a lot of doors for us, and it opens up a lot of great opportunities for our listeners as well to have some fun. So Prize Picks, we'll be talking more about them next week. Appreciate them being a part of the show. All right, man. Do you want to?
It's a pretty funny comment. Retro uniform would be me having hair.
Oh my gosh. Sam in a wig.
Yeah.
And a throwback. And my hairline getting back.
Yeah.
Just a little bit. Yeah, be great. We should ask the people if they would want to hear from my stylist. She's got a lot of TikTok rumors and Instagram rumors. And I don't know if that'd be a good part of the show. So let us know. Let us know. All right, let's talk Monday Night Football. Falcons 22, Eagles 21. I just heard that was the first time the Falcons had won in Philadelphia in about 12 years.
Yeah.
So they hadn't won in a while. Crazy finish. Your thoughts? We talked a little bit about it. Instant reaction, just YouTube exclusive. But for the audio people, got to recap the game a little bit. Yeah,
so you have, like I said this on our instant reaction show, it's almost like there's two separate conversations. There's kind of the big picture stuff, in particular with Kirk Cousins and what that whole offense looks like in Atlanta. And then you have the more granular, oh my, what a collapse by Philadelphia that ended up giving the game to Atlanta. And, they took advantage of it. As Nick Sirianni said, he wanted to let them drive the length of the field and score with their offense. And they did.
I had a thought about this, right? And look, it's so difficult, I think, making on-the-fly decisions in a game. I don't think people realize how quick it is, right? It's easy when I'm sitting back eating popcorn watching the game. Like, I'd go for it here, right? They got to do this really quickly. There was three potential scenarios here, right? So it's 3rd and 3. We expected them to run the ball, the Eagles. 3rd and 3.
Right.
They run the ball. There's about $1:40 left. Then, worst case, the Falcons have under a minute when they get the ball back, whether the Eagles decide to go for it or not. But what he told Jalen Hurts is, okay, they called a pass, they throw it to Saquon Barkley, he drops it. But they told Hurts, if it's not there, take the sack. Right?
It was there.
It was there. But so there's two options here. They expect it. It's either going to be there, it's a first down, or he's going to take a sack. We're going to lose yardage. It'll be 4th and forever, and we're going to kick a field goal. They didn't anticipate the incompletion, right? So the incompletion was, I think Sirianni had it in his mind. If we don't get it, we're kicking a field goal to go up 6. And what we talked about on the recap show is the 6-point lead is worse than a 3-point lead. And so I think that was a big part of it. He didn't have a chance to reset and think, hey, it's 4th and 3 and there's 1:40 left now.
Yeah.
I might actually need to go for this because we don't want to be up 6 because they're going for a touchdown.
Literally the worst thing they could have done was what they did. They found the worst combination of those plays. If they had gone for it on 3rd down with a pass, not completed it, but then gone for it again on 4th down, that would have been okay. If they just run the ball twice on 3rd down, that would have been okay. If they'd done what I think Peyton Manning was calling for, just use the push play twice, gain 1.5 yards twice, and that would have been fine. literally the worst option was, okay, you passed the ball and it was incomplete. That's not great. The only way you can make that worse then is by kicking and putting them up by 6 and giving, with that amount of time left on the clock, to execute that drive. You're actually better off at that point doubling down and saying, well, the chances of us falling incomplete twice are not particularly high. Let's go for it on 4th down. Let's end the game here. Instead, I think you're probably right that they just hadn't considered what happens if somebody drops the ball and it's incomplete and we don't have a chance to keep the clock moving. And they just panicked and kicked the ball, and we're like, it's the same scenario as if we hadn't completed it and taken the sack.
Because if they had taken the sack and it's 4th and forever and they kick it to go up 6,
that lack of time changes the dynamic. Yeah.
The Falcons. So there's two different scenarios there, though. The Falcons would get the ball back similarly with the kickoff, presumably at the 30, right? But they'd have under a minute.
Right.
Under
now,
a minute
as
with
it turns out, they didn't need any of that.
No, they didn't need
anyway.
it.
If the defense had played the same, it wouldn't have made any difference.
And look, I also want to reiterate for people here, and again, the listeners hearing this the first time, it took me a few minutes to understand this when analytically people talked about this a few years ago, the idea of if you're winning, it's better to be up 3 than 6 down the stretch, because the offense is going to be once they get into field goal range, they're in 4-down territory. And then they're also more aggressive trying to get the ball into the end zone. And then if they do succeed, if they get the touchdown, they're going to win. The game's almost over. Whereas if you're up 3, even if you do give up the field goal, that's just a tie. You have a chance to win in overtime, right? So you presumably still have a 50-50 win probability after the fact. And you know what happens when teams get into field goal range and they're down 3. They're not taking shots at the end zone, right? It is a rare move for a team to go and say, oh, yeah, we're going for the win. Once they get into field goal range, they're doing everything to set up that game-winning field goal. Now, either way, win probability is very much in the Eagles' favor in either scenario.
Yeah.
And the Falcons were down to, I think it was it ESPN or NFL?
NGS, I think.
NGS.
Yeah.
0.7% win probability for the Falcons at one point.
Yeah.
And they still pulled this thing off.
Right. Like, you have to, either way, you've got to say the defense has to do a better job than that. I mean, we were talking about Cousins' arm did not look good over the course of that game, particularly when he was throwing outside the numbers, to the outside. For some reason, when he has to throw it, drive it laterally, it seems to really tail off, and it looks like kind of late career Drew Brees out there on those plays. It didn't matter in that final drive because the Eagles were so far off any of those wide receivers. Like, there was enough space for them to wait for the ball from Cousins to arrive in a underthrown behind where it wants to be fashion, still make the catch and have a chance to, either get out of bounds or turn and try and make a move on a corner. Like, that's how far off those guys were in that coverage. And then Darius Slay getting absolutely cooked in the end zone by Drake London for the go-ahead touchdown. Like, the Sirianni's sequence there was a mess and a huge part of the failure. But the defense absolutely collapsed as well, and that's part of that story.
They did, and that's the defense that looked awful last year, right? I mean, the open throws that were given up last year by that defense, mostly over the middle of the field, but outside the numbers too. I mean, they looked awful down the stretch last year. They weren't like that for most of this game. They were fine. But down the stretch there, man, with that game-winning drive. And Cousins, I think Cousins really needed that. Because, again, if they were 0-2, the story of that game from the Falcons' perspective was like, look, Kirk's got nothing on the ball, whether it's lower body mechanics or it's just age or whatever it may have been. They're limited with what they can call offensively. You have Drake London and Darnell Mooney, 2 really good outside receivers that you can't get the ball to, and you can only throw the ball over the middle of the field. That's why Ray McLeod is the leading receiver right now for the Falcons, because that's the only place Kirk Cousins can throw the ball. That would be the story. And then they'd be sitting here at 0-2 with seemingly a juggernaut Saints team and a 2-0 Bucks team, and it's almost like, okay, when are we going to see Michael Penix? When is this too much for the Falcons? But they completely turned that around in about 50 seconds, where Cousins did step up and made a bunch of plays. And look, over the last since Kirk met Kevin O'Connell, he's been better in those crunch time situations, comeback situations.
Primetime Kirk is actually good. I mean, he's flipped the narrative of his career, where primetime Kirk Cousins used to be terrible and a joke and would wilt. you're right. Since really arriving in Minnesota, but definitely with Kevin O'Connell, primetime Kirk Cousins has been better than regular season Kirk Cousins. He's actually stepped up on those big occasions and played his best football. And while that isn't true for most of this game, where he didn't look great, he did show up when it mattered most. And yeah, the Eagles defense absolutely helped him out with the way they played, but Cousins made those plays, found the right place to go with the football, stood tall in the pocket, like made enough plays. And that last one, in fairness, absolutely London cooked Slay. But he got that one was maybe the most zip he put on an outside
He got
ball.
it out there, yeah. I don't know if that's just what Kirk needs for his confidence, and
it can't hurt, right?
Yeah, I mean, if that game ended with the Eagles running the ball, running the clock out as expected, it's a bit of a downer, right? It's a downer, and there were some other huge plays that seemingly saved the Eagles game, right? C.J. Gardner-Johnson making that huge stop on 4th and 1,
amazing play.
Like that game. The Eagles made a lot of good plays. They had a really good drive to answer the Falcons early in the fourth quarter, but they threw it all away at the end.
I think also what was getting a win in that game was huge because, as you said, the next game coming up is challenging as well. They were potentially staring 0-3 in the face. Just getting away from that, even if it's only a 1-week respite, is huge for them. But the big thing is because it buys them a little bit more time, right? I thought what we saw in this game was both Kirk Cousins and Zach Robinson, our friend and offense coordinator for the Falcons, I think you saw growth from each one of those guys understanding what we're dealing with now and how to make a better game plan and a better play calling structure than certainly week one, right? Like they took a lot of criticism combined for week one and everything that was happening there. No rollouts, no, all this pistol, like everything they were doing. And I think it's clear that Kirk Cousins is not 100% relative to what he was a year ago before that Achilles injury. And I think each one of them needs to understand what that means for this offense. Like, what are our limitations here? What is on the table? What is off the table? What can we work with? Immediately, we saw, like, the first drive. It was outside zone from under center, the thing that he was supposedly not able to do last week, right? Well, we saw that's back. They can do that. That's on the table. That is part of the offense now. So we saw play action off that. Like, we saw more. So I think both of those guys are working out on the fly what this version of Kirk Cousins can do. And, maybe it won't be next week because it's a tough opponent again. But beyond that, I think it means, like, that's an encouraging sign that they're developing, they're growing. It might take a while, but maybe the second half of the season we start to see this combination look really good.
Falcons have the Chiefs this week on Sunday Night Football, and you got to keep an eye on the Eagles, right? Because their collapse last year was trying to figure out what the issue was. Was it internal? What was happening internally? How much is on Nick Sirianni? And now, again, he's the head guy, and to fall to 1-1 like this when they had 2-0, staring 2-0 in the face, and maybe answering some of those questions from last year. We'll see how they respond.
Just going back to that sort of sequence of plays again one last time, I think you're right in highlighting it's difficult to calculate all of that on the fly and be right? But that's why the analytics thing exists, right? Mm-hmm. This is the problem with the argument that, well, you can't tell me how my left guard is playing in the cold weather on a Sunday, blah, blah, blah. That's the flaw of analytics. The coach knows best. Yeah, but the coach is trying to do this all within 15 seconds, right? I know there's a 35-second play clock, but you can't chew up all of that to figure out what you're doing. The coach is trying to make all of that calculation in his head in maybe 15 seconds, right? He's going to get that wrong a lot of times. So the analytics is here to say, all right, here's what the numbers say is the optimal strategy at this point. Now, overrule if you have a glaring reason to do so. But otherwise, like, this is the default position you should be going with. The default position would have told Nick Sirianni to do something different to what he did, right? And the problem, I think, is if the head coach is trying to do all that himself, saying, no, I know best at all times, only, try and overrule me if I've got something crazy happening, versus the other way around, which is we're going to go with the numbers by default unless I have an obvious reason not to. That was a great example, I think, of how analytics could have saved a mistake, right? He found the worst combination of plays to take from that situation, which analytics would have prevented him from doing.
Yeah. And then if Saquon Barkley catches the ball, the game's over.
Right.
And people aren't necessarily talking about it. Like, it's an aggressive move to seal the deal.
Yeah, to be clear, I don't really have a problem with passing the ball on third down. Yeah. Maybe it's less optimal than running it twice, whatever. Ultimately, he dialed up a play that should have worked and didn't because Saquon Barkley dropped the ball. My problem is with then compounding that error or that bad outcome by not going for it on fourth down. If you're going to take the risk on third down to pass the ball, you have to commit to the risk and say, no, if he drops it, we have to go for it again on fourth down. Yeah. Otherwise, it's a problem.
Bottom line is Nick Sirianni and Dom really need to rally the troops in Philadelphia.
Yeah. Well, Sirianni goes, this puts him back on the hot seat, right? Like this was an outcome that had some flashbacks to last year. Defensive collapse and mistake from him in terms of play calling, both of which ultimately come down on him, right? Like, so Sirianni goes from, we got a one-game break where we beat Green Bay in Brazil, but now this collapse comes, and now people are digging up, like, historic collapse numbers for the Eagles, and again, it's pressure back on his shoulders.
It is. Let's talk about, speaking of pressure, some 0-2 teams around the league. Professional segue right there.
Smooth.
Which 0-2 team, Sam, are you most worried about? Team or teams? Who are you most worried about?
If you'll allow me a second to pull up the sheet where I've already said.
According to the sheet where you put notes in, it might be.
Well,
I know who they are.
So obviously, Carolina's like the obvious answer to this, right? They've already benched Bryce Young. Everything there is a disaster. There's no way you can't be concerned about Carolina. In fact, I think everybody is so concerned by them that you've effectively written them off this season as an entity, right? You've benched your quarterback. Andy Dalton's coming in. They'll probably bounce back with Andy Dalton as the quarterback, actually, to be fair, on that side of the ball. It, however, will achieve nothing long-term, and they're effectively already strategizing for the draft. So Carolina, I think, is one obvious team. My other team, I think, that I'm most worried about is Denver. And we'll talk to the late young Michael Renner in a few minutes about this. The Broncos, with Bo Nix at quarterback, don't look good. They haven't found a way of using him yet, whether it's, hey, do what you did at Oregon, take everything underneath, or actually, no, we need you to push the ball down the field more. Either way, it's not working. I sent you that stat, right, that he was the first quarterback, was it rookie quarterback or quarterback, to lead his team in rushing through the first two games since 1950.
I think it's rookie, like his first two games actually playing.
Either way, when you're pulling up a stat that's not necessarily great from 1950, the last time that happened, it sort of says the things are not going well.
Yeah. I mean, we poo-poo the running game a lot here.
Poo-poo it.
All right? Clearly, you need to be able to run the ball effectively for a rookie quarterback to have success. And I think you need to have a somewhat effective running back for most quarterbacks, right? There's only a handful that might be able to overcome it. Like if Josh Allen didn't have a running game or Mahomes doesn't have a running game and, oh no, they have to throw the ball more, like they'll still put points up. They'll be okay. It's not about 50-50 balance. It's about a mental break for Bo Nix, and it's about having a 2nd and 5 and a 3rd and 3 for him to convert rather than 2nd and 3rd and long.
And to be clear, so far through 2 weeks, this season has been a big outlier in terms of general offensive production, passing production, all these things, right? So every rule of thumb we've been espousing over the last several years might be changing, right? There might have something shifted in the offseason.
The gap's at least being bridged, right?
But it might, but like all this, you don't do this, you do this, this doesn't matter, this matters. Like all of this might be different this year, right? We don't know. We're only 2 games in. It might just be a sample size issue. It might just be we got a lot of bad quarterbacks playing, but all this shifting of, shell coverage too high, take away the explosives, the natural progression to that would be a re-emphasizing or a shift of importance towards the running game.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I completely agree. And, a lot of that is it the defenses? Is it those defensive adjustments? The stats are staggering, as we've talked about, right? Passing yards are the lowest in about 10 years. Passing touchdowns are the lowest, at least since 2010. Explosives are the lowest. Explosive plays, your 15-yard plays, lowest since 2000, at least, dating back. That's as far back as we have the data from our friends at True Media. So, there's a lot more pressure on quarterbacks to make good decision after good decision, to hit the underneath routes, and then when you do hit, where Bo Nix is struggling, your 15 to 20 yard intermediate routes, like you got to hit them, and Nix has been all over the place with those. So you're concerned about Denver because support system around him, in addition to he's just not playing well through 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And none of the rookie quarterbacks really are.
Right.
So for me, so you go Carolina and Denver?
Yep.
For me, it's the Jaguars and Giants. Jags in particular, because you're finishing from last year, like you're continuing from last year when they were a promising team, right? The trajectory for the Jags should have been really clean. It should have been really, really clean. And it was kick out Urban Meyer, get Trevor Lawrence back on track, and that happened second half of 2022. And then early part of they have a disappointing loss in the playoffs. Early 23, they're competing for the number 1 seed. They're 8-3. Since that point, though, the trajectory makes no sense for the Jags. No sense whatsoever. Trevor Lawrence, still leaving a little bit on the table. He's throwing the ball down the field more than ever, and they're just not sustaining offense. They're not playing winning football, as I kept saying on Monday. Like the little things just aren't there. So I'm worried about the Jags because they're supposed to be better, and I'm worried about the Giants because you're in year 3 for Joe Shane, and you still have Daniel Jones, right? Like I don't think the ceiling's high for the Giants, but I don't know if all the pieces around him have improved since Joe Shane took over a few years ago. Yeah,
Giants definitely don't look good. The Jags, I think, might be able to work it out. I think Brian Thomas Jr. looks really good right out of the gate. I have a concern, or had a concern heading into the season, that was a very one-dimensional receiving core, and the one dimension is the thing that's being taken away right now, those explosive plays deep down the field. So that might be a problem, but it also means it's going to make sense that they take a while to figure out how to best deploy those guys. So I kind of think Jacksonville will pull it together. The Giants, less so.
How about a 2-0 team you're most surprised by, Sam?
So I've seen yours as well. I think these are the correct 2 teams. Like these are the 2 options you can have. I'm going with the Minnesota Vikings in large part because one of those wins is against San Francisco. Like we kind of said it made sense for Sam Darnold to have this start to the season because he's done it before. But for it to look so good, for the defense to look so good, and for them to beat fairly handily what we kind of think is the best team in the NFC in San Francisco, you can't help but be incredibly impressed by Minnesota's start.
Is that one of those questions in football? Like, is that just a matchup thing?
Yeah.
Is it just, hey, look, are the Vikings that good, or do they just have a favorable matchup?
It is, but remember, we kind of predicted that into that game, but it was more of a... Yeah. But even then, it was like Minnesota will cover. I didn't expect them to win, right? It's like I think they'll cause problems for them, and I think they can have success, and this will be a closer game. I didn't expect them to go and do it again and to knock off San Francisco and beat them with Sam Darnold.
Yeah, so I'm with you. Like impressed by Minnesota. For me, clearly it's the Saints. I mean, if you asked everybody around the league, the Saints being 2-0 in the fashion that they've been 2-0, crushed the Panthers, but really crushing Dallas in Dallas. That was a statement game. I don't know if they're going to keep it up, right? But what they've done offensively, the way Derek Carr is playing, the way they're using motion, using play action, using their playmakers, and then their offensive line, which we have raved about for the first 2 weeks in our review shows, and rightfully so. An offensive line that seemed to hit rock bottom last year, didn't look like it'd be any better with Ryan Ramczyk dealing with potential career-ending injuries and having to draft a first-round tackle, move him from the right side to the left side into Tulise Fuanga. They're playing awesome up front, and then on both sides of the ball, right? Playing that hard-nosed defense, playing tight coverage like they tend to do. Very impressed with the Saints, and going to Dallas and making that kind of statement, especially on the line of scrimmage, I thought was really impressive for the Saints. And now you're looking at a team that, is reaching the potential we thought they had maybe last year, and putting it all together so far through 2 weeks.
Yeah. Somebody called Lav S in the chat says, how did we not mention the Ravens being 0-2? I mean, we didn't mention them because we're not concerned about them.
Yeah, so 0-2 team you're most worried about. I had the Ravens in there originally, and then, I'm more concerned about Jacksonville and the Giants.
I'm not tremendously concerned by Baltimore.
The segment is who you most worried about. But I consider the Ravens, and I'll touch on them really quick.
0-2 is bad, but I don't expect that to be the outlook of their season.
The concern, but they lost to the Chiefs.
Yeah.
Obviously, it's concerning you
by
losing.
A toe.
Right. it's obviously concerning that you blow a 10-point lead to the Raiders at home when you are, touchdown favorites. That is concerning for the Ravens, but I think they'll bounce back out of it, right? But I think some of the off-season questions about the Ravens is the offensive line good enough? Have they figured out how to use Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry effectively enough together? Will they handle the loss of Mike McDonald defensively? Those are still questions heading into week 3 here. So, yeah, the Ravens have some concern, but not as much as these other teams. Mm-hmm. All right, the last piece of this segment. Before we get Mike, 2-0 team you are most confident in.
Yeah, and I added the stipulation that you can't pick the Chiefs.
I feel really good about the Kansas City Chiefs. I really think they have a chance to make a deep playoff run this season.
The 2-0 Kansas City Chiefs, having already knocked off 2 other AFC contenders, I feel pretty good about. So I feel like they're ineligible for this. And when you eliminate them, it becomes quite a lot harder.
It does.
So, because some of the best teams are not 2-0, However, I have the most confidence in right now in the Houston Texans. I'm kind of buying into this hype now. They think they're for real. They've looked pretty for real. C.J. Stroud is just continuing to look so impressive. And I think, honestly, that's looking even more impressive when you look at the rest of the landscape. Like, he's playing incredibly. He looks to be getting better. And the rest of the quarterback situation throughout the NFL, particularly the young quarterback situation, looks awful.
We are at a point since 2021, the 3 quarterbacks who have had some level of sustained success, right? I believe it's just the 3. Trevor Lawrence from the 21 class, C.J. Stroud,
and Brock Purdy.
And Purdy in 22 and Stroud in 23.
Yeah.
That's it, because none of the rookies are having success right now. Right. The 21 class had the 5 first-rounders. They're all on different teams except for Trevor. 3. Now, the 2020 class, everyone's making $50 million.
Right.
But in 2021, 22, and 23, we're talking about 3 QBs, Stroud being one of them.
Yeah, and in particular, like the last couple of years, they're almost all struggling except those guys. So I'm so impressed by the Texans, both offense and defense.
So I'm completely with you because I believed in them coming in. And most impressive for me with the Texans is they can win in any different way, right? In any way, they can win. Defensively, they can win. I think with the run game when Mixon's healthy, they can win with the pass game with Stroud. I'm going to go with the Seahawks, though. I get confidence in the Seahawks at 2-0.
Okay.
And in part because I think it's the best defensive line they've had in years. They're getting after the QB. I think Mike McDonald's defense, it's proven to be better and more effective than I think Seattle's had over the last couple of years. Geno Smith's playing good ball. They've got a trio of receivers to throw to now, and when Ken Walker's healthy, they run the ball pretty effectively. Offensive line's been, I'd say, some pass protection issues, but overachieving maybe relative to their expectations as well. So I'll take the Seahawks here.
All right.
So I know we're a minute early on Renner. This is throwing me off here.
Yeah, you're expecting him to be late.
I'm not going to lie. I expected him to be late.
Wow.
I mean, if it was the weekend, he would definitely be late. But it's Wednesday.
He's corporate Renner. He's
corporate
CBS now. He's big time.
As I said before, he's probably never been late since cutting his hair.
He's probably got like a PA now. He's a CBS person that gets him to and from.
Do you think he does? There's no way, because he was. I wonder how he
gets. Put him on the screen and ask
All
him.
right, let's get Mike Renner in here. I want to know if
PA,
because he was at the studio the other day, right, or maybe today. Hi, Mike.
What's up?
You coming from the studio here down in Florida?
I am in the studio. I'm in the half of the CBS studio where no one works out of. But I am the PA here. I am the people doing stuff for other people. I don't have a PA.
I was wondering if they send black car treatment for you to get to and fro from the hotel or whatever it might be, or
Nothing. We don't get. Sadly, I got a rental car when I went to Chicago's training camp, so that was nice. That was cool.
There you go.
That was an upgrade from PFF.
That's not bad.
So welcome in, Mike, the co-host of Pushing the Pile. Tell everybody about the new show.
Yes. Pushing the Pile, Monday, Thursday, 9:30 a.m. Just got off it. It's me and Kyle Long. Pete Frisco joins on Tuesdays. We got Leger Dujable on Wednesdays to talk a little O-line, D-line stuff. But, yeah, we just, talk ball. Some draft gets mixed in the mix, but it's mainly NFL. Kyle's got the player perspective. I've kind of got the high-level team building, player evaluation perspective, and we kind of join those two. But I got to say, I'm flattered you guys named your show after me. Check the mic. I didn't know you liked me that much, but thanks.
It's an homage, Mike. We were just saying, you're part of the history of this show. Former, host of the thing. It's like the Browns being entitled to their own legacy. We're bringing that legacy with us, so you're part of it.
I like that.
No, very honored.
Kyle Long, by the way, he had a good NFL career, but the first year at PFF that we graded in the preseason, the very first game, I think Kyle had like a 90 grade, and he was like the highest graded first rounder that year. And I remember thinking, all right, this is it, Kyle Long. This guy's going to be great. He's going to have a great career because we just graded one preseason game and he had a 90. That was just one of the things that stood out.
He turned into an All-Pro.
And he turned into a very good player.
Remembered that. He remembered that his grade that preseason when we talked.
Yeah, it was the first week.
Like my preseason grade.
First week we had ever graded preseason, so we had to hype it up like, oh, Kyle Long, what a find by the Bears. This will never go wrong because he just had one great game, and it was good. He had a good career. So we could talk forever, Mike, but we brought you on. Let's start with the just QBs or receivers.
Yeah, what do you want to do?
We wanted to talk receivers first. Let's talk about the receivers. Marvin Harrison Jr. has the huge game last week. Were you concerned coming out of week 1, and were you surprised with what he did in week 2?
I'm a little concerned, honestly. I mean, if based off expectations, I think he's going to be a darn good wide receiver, but he doesn't look as twitchy as he did a year ago. Now, maybe there's an injury tampering or whatnot, and maybe that'll turn around. But yeah, I mean, the GPS numbers that everyone kind of was bandying about on Twitter about him having the slowest top speed of any of those top receivers, it was real on tape. I was worried about him getting off the line a little bit. Even this past week when he had the big game, like there was a press coverage rep where he got pushed out of bounds entirely. That I'm like, ooh, I do think there's some worry. There's just a little more rough around the edges, and he's kind of getting just slower off the line than I thought. And now maybe there's an injury again, and he'll week 8 look awesome. But yeah, I'm not sure I'm seeing Justin Jefferson rookie year, Jamar Chase rookie year, unfortunately. But it's about expectations. He still looks darn good, right? Like against off coverage, he's still great at manipulating corners, and he's still a great route runner, but and still good at the catch point. So a lot to like. But if I'm taking the wide receivers right now, Malik Neighbors has looked better in my opinion.
The press coverage stuff is weird because I thought he was phenomenal at that in college. Like just instantly shed contact at the line of scrimmage in a way he hasn't through the first 2 weeks. And as you said, it's only 2 weeks. We were talking about this before. Do you think that there is something to certain uniforms and jerseys making guys look slower or faster than they are?
I don't think so. I do think turf versus grass is real.
Agreed.
Like if you're evaluating on turf versus evaluating on grass, there's a difference. But jerseys, maybe I just subconsciously haven't gotten to that point where I've admitted my bias yet, and there is, and I'm just not woke to it yet. But to me, no, I don't think I've noticed jerseys looking faster.
I mean, you've come up with name biases, right? You were like, oh, dude, guy with a normal name just doesn't get the right credit, right?
Doesn't stick in your head as much. I think you think about a guy more who has a cool name. It just like subconsciously, it's more easily recognizable. On tape, you're watching other guys, that guy because the name's so yeah, the name bias is real.
Maybe that's why I didn't like Brian Thomas.
Yeah, it's too.
That honestly is a great. He's got a boring ass name.
It's like top 5 name in the world, Brian,
right.
or in the country. Brian Thomas can't have that.
Maybe
Never be good.
Maybe suddenly the veil has been lifted from my eyes.
What'd you
Brian
see?
Thomas is a left guard.
Brian Thomas is a left guard. Oh man, it's like a guy named Bear that's like trying to be a kicker. It's like, no, that doesn't work.
Exactly.
Malik Neighbors, what did you see from him with his 18 targets this week?
Yeah, he's just different caliber of athlete, and it still looks like it. He's not a great route runner though, still, which is wild. I mean, like he's kind of. I think we used to always at PFF talk about the Michael Thomas plan for guys as a rookie, where it's like run a slant, run a go, run a post, and one cut routes. And that's like with Neighbors. On those, he's awesome. If he just has to make one cut, you're not sticking with him off that cut. But like the other stuff is kind of just, he's going to need to get better at it. And I trust that he will. He's still super young. But man, just freaky athlete. The ball skills, the attack, the physicality, I think has been the biggest thing to me that I wasn't always sure of playing the slot and who he's going up against at the catch point at times when you are a slot receiver in college football. You're going up against maybe like slot corners or safeties who maybe don't have ball skills. So I was like, what's it going to look like against outside NFL corners? He's looked good in that regard. Obviously the 4th down drop aside, and that's going to stick in his mind for a while here, but the rest has been really, really impressive. And just the yak is different level. And that's like everyone wants yak nowadays, right? Everyone's just throwing underneath and saying, go give me a first down because of how defense they're playing. And so to have a guy like that, now if they just had more around him and a quarterback, it would be nice. But like that's a great starting point for the Giants.
Yeah, I want to give Brian Daboll credit, and I did on our Monday show. A lot of people talk about feeding your playmakers. I mean, there's no better example than that, having 2/3 of the targets go to Malik Neighbors, and he deserves all of them. Like, as you said, I don't know if there's other guys that you really want to be feeding. The next adjustment for the Giants, of course, is figuring out when people take away Neighbors. But good job by Brian Daboll finding ways to get Neighbors the ball and get him the ball in space to be able to use that athleticism, as you mentioned.
He also apparently asked him, just like, hey, what plays do you feel good at or good about right now? And Neighbors just gave him a list, and like, that's what he called.
Shallow cross.
But that's like, it's like he just called from this list of 5 plays for the second half of the game.
It is funny because I agree Neighbors like lacks a little bit of polish. I feel like he comes off his feet a little bit too much, like he's jumping for a lot of passes that he doesn't need to. I mean, if he refines parts of his game, absolutely can be special, but love what I've seen so far. How about a couple of the other – let's go Brian Thomas Jr. really quick because we talked about him a ton on the show. I don't remember where you stood on him pre-draft, but what was your pre-draft on Brian Thomas and what you've seen so far?
I liked him a lot. I thought he was kind of in that same bucket I just talked about with Neighbors, where a few routes he's awesome at. And vertical tree, he's just unbelievable in that his top speed is special for a bigger wide receiver. And when you have that, like, kind of like a DK Metcalf can't run every route, but he's so effective at the routes he does that it's still so dangerous. That's what I thought Brian Thomas Jr. was. So I had him like 25th on the board. So like where they drafted him, that's where I was comfortable drafting him. But I think he's even showed me a little bit more even early on. I think he's quite clearly, just from the tape, the Jaguars' best wide receiver. And now drop, I think, like some not on the same page stuff you've seen from him so far. And that's like, whatever. It's a rookie, game 2, game 1 in his career. Not that big a deal. But I've seen stuff from like a pure physical perspective that's just, it's unique, right? The guy that big, that explosive, that can then stop and turn his hips, that's flexible, that I think the sky really is the limit for him. And I maybe didn't give him enough credit coming out. I thought he would be a limited receiver. I didn't give enough credit for what he could become. And I think we've seen even that early on, and that if the Jaguars offense could just get out of their own way, he could be 1,000-yard receiver this year easily.
Yeah, I certainly didn't give him enough credit coming out for what he could be. Agreed with you that he was a limited receiver in terms of stylistically what he does well. Was even lower on you in terms of how effective that would be. But I've been so impressed by some of his route running nuance right away. Like, he's looked really good at some of the stuff that just wasn't on his tape. Not necessarily because he couldn't do it, just because they didn't ask him to do it at LSU. Like, some of that stuff has been really impressive through 2 weeks, to the point where, they might need him to be this guy, but he can step in and be the Jacksonville equivalent of Neighbors or Marvin Harrison, like their number 1 receiver who does run a complete route tree.
It's 100%. And I think he is, right? I think he is right now their best receiver. Yeah. I don't think it's even like a debate.
Interesting time in Jacksonville, too, because Trevor Lawrence's average depth of target, I think it's around 11. I know he was over 10 in the first game and over 12 in the second game. Never seen him throw the ball down the field that much, which is like when you add Gabe Davis, you add Brian Thomas, it's like, okay, you want to do that, but now I think they're lacking the underneath stuff. Can Brian Thomas Jr. advance his game to be that all-around type of guy and catch the quick out, right, and just not have those lulls? But yeah, I've been impressed as well with the same things you're saying. Guys like Roma Dunze, Xavier Worthy, a couple other first rounders. What have you seen from those guys so far?
I thought Rome week 1, and I think he was banged up heading into week 2. But week 1, I thought he should have been targeted more. I mean, he was obviously, like everyone on that Bears offense, probably should have been targeted more if their quarterback and offensive line were anywhere close to ready to play. But I think he's, as advertised is what I would probably say from what I saw week 1, but it's just like in that offense right now, I don't know if anyone's going to put up numbers with how it's looking, unfortunately, but he looked like he get open. They ran him on a ton of different routes, like moved him around the formation, a lot of what we saw out of Washington, and he looked like he could do it. Just, he's not, and when he was open, like he wasn't getting hit. So the numbers may not reflect the quality that he's putting on tape right now. Who else did you mention there? Xavier Worthy?
Xavier Worthy. We saw the 2 touchdowns in week 1, a little bit quieter in week 2 for the Chiefs.
Yeah, I mean, Mahomes tried to throw him a go ball, right, one-on-one. That's not his game, in my opinion. I don't think that's ever going to be his game. You have the Cam Taylor-Britt pick on that. Obviously, it's a great play, but like he is the corner post. He's that guy who's running from the slot or who's like going in motion to run that route. He's not just line him up on the outside, send him deep. He's too slight. The corners are going to get their hands on him, but man, the speed, we saw it on the end around. You just see it when they do just let him rip down the field. It's just a different element to that offense that is, that's who he was. You weren't thinking he was going to be Mr. 100 catch, 1,500 yards. That's not what he ever was going to be as a first round wide receiver. But in the specific role, everything pretty much Mecole Hardman used to do for the Chiefs, he can do just at a so much better level. He's just so much better at it.
Yeah.
We'll see about his ball skills. Obviously, 7 targets or something early on. That's kind of going to be him, 3 to 4 targets a game. But those 3 to 4 targets could result in 100 yards, right? Is what you're banking on. So that element still, you're seeing a different Chiefs offense because of him, even if his yardage is only pretty limited through 2 weeks.
That play with the interception from Taylor-Britt was a great example of why just running a 4-2 doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to be that, dynamic outside vertical go route guy, because you have to, at 160 something pounds, in order for you to get by the corner, you have to run all the way around him. And if that guy runs anything approaching like a 4-3 or a 4-4, which Britt does, you can't. You have to run too far an arc around the guy. Otherwise, the second he gets his hand on you, it doesn't matter what speed you run, because you just negated that speed. Like, you can't run 4-2-1 through a corner's contact. So that's why Taylor-Britt was so bullish going into the game that, we've got this covered. And okay, he blew a play to Rashee Rice, but that play was why you need to have him lined up away from that contact, because 160 pounds does matter.
100%.
We had a text exchange yesterday about this next guy. Carolina Panthers have been the worst team in the league, drafted Xavier Legette in the first round. Can he help them? What's Legette looking like so far through 2 weeks?
He's not been good. There's not even like much to write. Like, I thought he's even looked, what I said about Marvin Harrison kind of looking slower. Legette's the same way. And now sometimes rookies, like, if you don't know the offense 100%, you're not as confident, and you're looking, if you have to make post-snap adjustments, you're just not going to be as aggressive. And maybe there's some of that, but even when it's pure, like, beat a man coverage route, it's been ugly for him. And that was my worry coming out, was where his kind of production was at South Carolina. Just, I don't know if it was going to translate to the NFL, and I'm worried. Yeah, his tape was worrisome so far. He's not really getting open. He doesn't look as explosive. He looks tentative. And just his route running chops were never like his strong suit. Strong suit is his tools, and the tools haven't shined. And that's always a worry.
Are you saying that the Carolina Panthers have drafted Jonathan Mingo for 2 consecutive seasons?
He's a little bit faster than Mingo, but the same, like, I couldn't believe it when they drafted him, because I think it was a new regime this year. Like, Dan Morgan, his brand new scouting staff and whatnot that drafted this draft, but it was the exact same type of wide receiver, right? It's like this late breakout, kind of just got by on being the biggest dude on the block when he's going up against 19 and 20-year-olds, and didn't have like a route running prowess that got me excited whatsoever. And then Mingo turns into one of the worst rookie wide receivers last year. And, well, I don't think that's going to be too dissimilar for Legette, unfortunately, this year.
Trying to read between the lines, I feel like Dave Canales had a lot to do with the Xavier Legette love. I mean, there was a lot of pre-draft love. There was like 4 visits. They're local. But you mentioned DK Metcalf in the Brian Thomas Jr. discussion. He was the one that came up because Canales did have DK. He was on the Michael Thomas Jr.
And Mike Evans.
He was on, the slants and goes plan as he developed as a receiver. And I think that's what they thought they would use Legette as, right? As the DK Metcalf. He's fast, shallow drags, slants, and goes. But yeah, the 50-year breakout thing and the lack of polish, I think, is a concern for Legette.
And they really haven't even used him like that. Like they said they would. Yeah. And then it hasn't, and unfortunately so. We'll see.
Two more guys to touch on before we talk QBs, but Keon Coleman with the Bills and then Ladd McConkey with the Chargers.
Keon, I think at what he is solid. Contested catches, underneath route runner. I still think like his ability to really flip his hips and present a target quickly is impressive. Like he can run a hitch and get open on it, even if like guys right in his hip pocket and secure balls in that regard. I think you're seeing maybe he's limited. You know, he had, when he did go against, you know, the Bills didn't play a ton of man coverage, but like he had a couple reps against Jalen Ramsey in that game, and you know, Ramsey won him. So it was a tough matchup, but like Ramsey got the better of him both times. I do just think you're going to have to expect this semi-limited wide receiver but like the things he does do, I think he's good at it. It's just, what's the ceiling going to be for that guy? And with Ladd, he's skinny, right? I think you saw in the touchdown catch week 1 that like the shiftiness, the kind of just sixth sense for avoiding contact is there. The route running is there. I think he'll be featured even more in that offense when they do want to pass, whenever that time comes, whenever they're forced to. But he's weak. You know, he is slim, and worry about his, you know, when a guy's that slim, when a guy struggles with contact, you're going to have to you know, do some things to scheme around it, but he avoids contact so much better than even like a Xavier Worthy, who we were talking about. So what I've seen from early on, I'm encouraged by. I can't believe you're not asking me about Adonai Mitchell though, when he's the guy who's like this enigma in this rookie class so far, because his tape is unbelievable from a pure, just like what he's doing, like physically doing. But then he's caught only 2 of 9 passes and like dropped a ball when he didn't drop any at Texas. And like, he's all over the map in terms of running the wrong routes. Not on the same page as quarterback, but man, that guy's talent is off the charts from what I've seen.
My apologies. We put the list together, and I meant to add your guy, Adonai Mitchell, because he could easily have like 400 yards through two games with the deep balls that have been missed there, right? He's been mostly used as a vertical threat, and you know, like you said, just no connection with Anthony Richardson.
The route running thing is hilarious as well, because one of the notes I had for him in college is that I didn't even know what some of the routes he was running were. Like it was just random craziness that ended up getting him open. The ball arrived. He's still doing it.
Is that Stevie Johnson?
Yeah.
That was what Stevie Johnson used to always do.
Yeah.
Sam.
I mean, different mechanism, but same idea. Yeah.
It's crazy. And it's kind of one of those things where it's like, does he ever? You know, it's been this long, like, will this guy just always be this loose cannon?
Yeah.
Or is that why teams pass on him? Because, I mean, I always say that like the separation ability, like the dynamism is paramount, and then the rest kind of like will be good enough in time, you hope, but like, is it going to be? I don't know. It's just that guy's I flip on his tape every single week because I'm like, what is he doing now? Because it really is, if he's one-on-one, he's been as impressive in terms of just getting open as any of these other receivers in this class.
Yeah, Mike Renner here, the co-host of the Pushing the Pile podcast with Kyle Long, live from the DMV. We appreciate Mike joining us here. Stole a joke from somebody in the chat. They asked if you were at the DMV.
Oh, yeah?
So no, it's
That's like the funniest thing you've said in years, and you stole it from the
Stole
chat.
it. Yeah, completely stole it. Were there any other rookie receivers that it's all a producer's fault, that they forgot to list here that you wanted to talk about?
I think I'd like what I've seen from Jalen Polk. He's probably the other one where I'm like, oh, that's interesting. He's like, could be a good possession receiver if they, you know, another team that's like, if they wanted to pass, he's been impressive in that regard. And also Mason Tipton, that guy can fly. I'm interested, like just the Saints offense in general. I'm interested to see the role he has, because I actually truthfully didn't even scout him coming out of Yale. So those two, I'm just intrigued by what they are going for.
The Saints have this incredible run of finding fast guys that can flip the field. Rashid Shaheed, of course, right now. And if they've unlocked another one in Tipton, you know, who the heck knows? Let's talk rookie quarterbacks. It's been rough so far. Start with Caleb Williams. What have you seen? High level, what are you seeing with the rookie quarterbacks? And then we can maybe go player by player.
Unpreparedness, I think, is like the biggest word. They're not ready. I mean, actually, I take that back. I think Bo Nix actually looks like he could. It's just he's really nixing really hard in terms of just like he's really checking down like a lot, and he used to do that, and then he would hit the big one every now and then. Keep you honest, like he's missed all the big ones. Like he's had opportunities, he just has missed every single one, unfortunately. But now he had one this past week, but like there have been those, and he's just missed them. But I think he can play going forward. But I think the other two are like they're going to get themselves killed, truthfully, and they're not in situations that are conducive to that. But you're just risking bad habits with these guys. You're risking sort of, when you're hell set play, when you're getting hit as much as they did. And I was like counting up the hits, and it was like, I think with Caleb, it was 15. With Caleb it was 13, and Jaden Daniels, it was 15 actual like hits to the ground that you feel after the fact, right? It wasn't like, oh, you're, getting touched as you go out of bounds as a runner. It's like, no, that one's going to sting. And if you're doing 15 a game for 17 games, you're just mentally going to be kind of in a position where Bryce Young was, where you may not even know it, but you're subconsciously playing the position to try to avoid those hits without like doing what it takes, like without like learning how to play the position the way it takes to actually avoid those hits, which is like get the ball in your hands quickly and like run through the offense with confidently in the pocket when and actually just like get the ball in your hands consistently. And I think you're running the risk with both those guys. And now I think Daniels has been much more impressive than Caleb from like a just doing that at sometimes, like actually like getting the ball out and looking comfortable doing so, but he's still, breaking the pocket to run as opposed to breaking the pocket to still be a quarterback, or like dropping his eyes to moving in the pocket to still be a quarterback as opposed to moving his eyes to run. And Caleb, you're just, I don't know. I mean, it's like what Bryce Young looked like last year through week 1 and 2. And now obviously not putting Bryce Young's career on him. Things can change, but that's a bad start. That's not where you want to be mentally. And I just don't think you need to. There's no use at this point. If I've seen what I've seen from him in this first 2 weeks, yeah, benching him's a tough pill to swallow, but I don't think he's developing good habits, right? It's like he's not getting better at the things we said he needed to get better on from USC to the NFL. He's probably getting worse at it. You think he's going to feel comfortable getting to his third read in a progression at any point during his rookie season? I don't think so, from what he's gone through. So unfortunately, I think they're running the risk of some bad habits when you just don't need to subject a guy to that objectively.
How much do you think that the struggles of the young quarterbacks right now are a product of defenses fighting back, defenses having the ascendancy right now, the offense generally being down, or how much are they causing that? Like how much of all these numbers of touchdowns, explosives, blah, blah, everything being down, how much of that is because Caleb Williams and Jaden Daniels and Bo Nix and Bryce Young and the other young quarterbacks?
Yeah, I think it's twofold, right? I think defenses have finally shed the Seattle cover 3 base and gone to a cover 6, cover 4 base, kind of like their bread and butter, open field, early down coverage concepts that just play action doesn't work as well against those. A lot of deep concepts don't work as well unless you're like obviously the New Orleans Saints, but like that puts caps on defense on offenses. And to counteract that, if you're a quarterback, what do you have to do? You have to be able to live in the let's gain 8 yards every play world. You have to be able to take those consistently and be accurate and not not hold out for the big plays and take the big sacks that I think a lot of teams are. And that's why the other part of that is sim pressures and the rise of these complex blitz packages, or sim pressure's not even blitz, it's 4 guys coming, but like offensive lines are being brought to their knees by these things. Like the no preseason, first time seeing all these exotic looks that everyone nowadays is running. Whereas like a decade ago, the Mike Zimmer double A gap was the pinnacle of exotic blitz packages. Right now, if you don't have a double A gap in your pressure looks, you're a fish at the NFL level as a defensive coordinator, and that was like only one guy running it. So I think we've seen that evolution, and so it's just tough as a rookie quarterback. You've never seen some of this stuff before, and so you're under pressure more than you've ever been before, and that they just need the reps against these things, and they're not getting it. And we know all the guys that were so seasoned and had seen all these and could just go pick you apart down the football field when they saw that and knew where exactly to go when they saw these blitzes coming, they're all in the league now, or they have Achilles injuries that they're coming back from. So, yeah, I do think it's kind of a twofold in that defenses have more answers, but then also the complete old guard left, and we just have a bunch of quarterbacks who have never really seen this stuff trying to play against them.
I like the way you positioned it, right? Because a lot of teams tried to emulate Seattle, and I said this for years. It's like trying to emulate Seattle when they had the perfect left corner for their system, the perfect free safety, the perfect strong safety, and a great four-man rush. And every time a team went and the Falcons tried to do it or Gus Bradley tried to do it, it's like you don't have any of those pieces. And now you just have a mediocre, you have a decent scheme. It's a fine scheme without the perfect pieces to do it. It is funny because, again, as you talk through it, the pressure schemes and all this stuff, it's less player-driven, right? So now you've got defenses that you can hide corners when you're playing more cover 4, cover 6 the way they are. You can hide the inability to rush the passer by using sim pressures. So now it does maybe even the playing field for defenses around the league as we're talking through this. I was getting nervous for Caleb every time the Texans put 5 or 6 men on the line of scrimmage. Like, I was just like, this is bad. Like, I don't think the line's going to unpack it. I don't think he's going to decipher it. So your point is he doesn't look ready. I think his accuracy looks completely off, but that's all connected, right? You're talking footwork, you're talking comfort, you're talking confidence. All that stuff's tied together.
Yeah, when a quarterback who objectively had no accuracy concerns coming out of USC, I don't think you talked to anyone and they ever mentioned his accuracy as like, we'll see how that is. When he's missing throws, well, what does that tell you? There's something up here if a guy's doing that. That's like not there. And so that's what we saw from Bryce. Like, Bryce Young is on the move, missing throws that, like, everyone coming out of Alabama is like, this guy on the move doesn't miss. He is just like as good as it gets. People are calling, he's like Mahomes on the move. When that's the case, it's like it's between the ears. It's no longer a physical thing that you're worrying about. You're worrying about this guy is not there mentally. And you can forgive week 1. He's juiced up. Obviously comes out the gate and just like overthrows 2 deep balls by like 10 yards. But that wasn't the case this past week, and it's still there, the inaccuracies. It's like, man, I think I said this on the show earlier today. If you polled fan bases of all the teams that drafted a rookie quarterback in round 1, the ones that are the happiest are the ones that aren't playing, right? It's probably the Falcons, it's probably the Vikings, and it's probably the Patriots. Those are the fan bases that are probably the happiest right now, looking at their quarterback situation and what they have.
Is this the first time that there's probably a definitive answer to whether you should start the rookie quarterback from week 1? Like, this has always been we never know, the debate. You can fudge the numbers either way. Right now, it looks like you should not be putting rookie quarterbacks out there based off the current landscape.
Well, it used to be. I mean, like, I actually think we went through a period where like 2011, like Newton, Luck was like when it was really like, okay, every first overall pick has to start, right? When you went back-to-back years and they looked as good as they did with Cam Newton, Andrew Luck, RG3, after that, the consensus became these guys have to play right away. Whereas before that, Carson Palmer was the number 1 overall pick and sat a year on the bench. Eli Manning was a Manning, right? Was hyped as he was and spent half a season on the bench or whatever. So that used to be the general consensus, was let this guy sit. And what we just saw with Bryce Young and the laughingstock that the Panthers became, and what we're seeing now with Caleb, I think you'll see that pendulum swing violently back the other way, because, not every single guy, but like how many guys got that red shirt or got that grace at the beginning of their careers, whether it's Mahomes, whether it's Jordan Love, whether it's Lamar Jackson, whether it's Jalen Hurts, whether it's Aaron Rodgers, whether it's, so many names throughout the list that, like, when they have no pressure as a rookie to start with this 4-month off season, that's the shortest and weirdest off season of their entire lives, when they're not asked to do it, well, it turns out they look a lot more comfortable out the gate and don't develop as many bad habits. So, I think the pendulum's going to swing pretty violently if this is what we see from Caleb Williams all year long.
What did you make of the report that the Patriots are giving Drake May 30% of the first team reps when the standard is 5%, right? So they're actually developing him at practice, not putting him into games. There's been some people have complimented this approach. Some people have criticized it. Where do you stand on how the Patriots are handling that?
I'm going to compliment that approach. You guys preach long-term team building. I preach long-term team building. That's what long-term team building looks like. It looks like you can say to your team, Jacoby's our guy this year. Drake, everyone has some sense to them. They're not thinking that, you drafted a guy number 3 overall and that this is like a real quarterback competition long-term, that Jacoby can win this job. It's like, no, it's Drake's. It at the end of the day is Drake's job. And yeah, you're trying everything you can to win this year, but like Drake is the guy that gives you the best chance to win a Super Bowl. That's just what it is. So yeah, I think if your messaging is on point in the locker room, I don't see any guy in that locker room grumbling about that. And I think it's exactly what I would do if I was running an NFL franchise.
So this all brings us around to Bryce Young, who's just gotten benched, obviously. I saw your tweet yesterday that your draft evaluation of Bryce Young was incorrect, right? Which our draft evaluation of Bryce Young was also incorrect. My question, though, is how different does this look? Let's just skip over the fact that they've changed regimes and coaching staffs, et cetera. But if Bryce Young was sat for that first year instead of thrown to the Wolves, how much of this is a product of a crappy situation and the fact that he was thrown out there day one?
I think it's 100%. Okay, how to word this. I think what he looks like right now is 100% a product of the situation he was thrown out to last year, because he looks worse than last year, right? Like he's objectively doing things that he didn't even do week 1 and week 2 last year. So there is a degradation of his skills that would not have occurred had he sat in the bench for a year. So from that perspective, him getting thrown out there has negatively impacted him. So like that's a part of it. Now, I'm not saying if he would have sat for a year, he's Patrick Mahomes right now, or that he's the guy everyone thought he would be. He may still have been too small. It may have only been a matter of time before. But I think it's safe to say he developed bad habits as a rookie that are now making him a worse quarterback than he even was last year. So yeah, I think that's really all it is then. I think that's really the entire argument, that at the end of the day, it's like, would he have been for sure the guy had he sat? No one knows. It's obviously no one has a time machine, but you would be seeing a much better guy in year 2. And that's really all you care about when you draft a guy number 1 overall. No one wins Super Bowl as a rookie. You were a terrible team as a roster. You were always planning for, I think as a rookie quarterback, you should be planning for year 3, ideally, is what your timeline should always be when you draft that guy in the top 10. How do I put the best team to win a Super Bowl in year 3? Like that's what you should be thinking about. And from the Carolina Panthers perspective, what they've done has not been has not resembled anything close to put the best team around him in year 3. It's been an abject disaster, and that's why he's getting benched right now. Because if this is the second start of his career, and he looked like this, he wouldn't be getting benched right now. And truthfully, he wouldn't look like this.
It's tough because I think the people that didn't like Bryce Young as prospects, right, are obviously taking victory laps right now. But I feel like, and I can't even sort of say it's revisionist history because those people thought this at the time. But like Benjamin Solak, right, now of ESPN, was out here saying that there was never a special trait for Bryce Young. Like he simply never had an NFL tool set in his college career. Like it was never there. And all we're seeing is a product of that. I just don't think that that's true. Like he had those special traits in college. His anticipation was insane. His accuracy was fantastic. His breadth of variety of throws was spectacular in college. And we're simply seeing none of those things right now because everything else is killing him, right? So I find the narrative about him now tough because of all those things.
Yeah, you could take a victory lap if you had anyone else higher. Right? Like if you had Stroud higher, Richardson higher, sure, by all means, take that. But no one had him outside the first round. I don't think anyone was like, don't draft him at all. People were just saying, yeah, you prefer these other guys. So, yeah, I think it's disingenuous to say that there was not stuff on tape. I went back and watched the tape actually yesterday after he got benched and was like, did we see some of it? I think the Texas game 2022, when they had to eke out the win on like a fourth quarter drive where he had that nice like slip first down where he ran for. I think that was where maybe you saw the most of it because they really got after him in that game. You saw pressure kind of get to him, but then you also saw him stare down the barrel and deliver some strikes that you never saw in Carolina. So to say there was nothing special, I think, is revisionist history. You don't have the kind of consensus that we saw. It was Todd McShay, Mel Kiper. It was Daniel Jeremiah. It was Dane Brugler, not just myself, who had him as quarterback when that draft class. So you don't have those guys. It was Rick Spielman saying everything about this guy is A+ besides his height. So, yeah, I think that's disingenuous of a narrative.
You were the only one, Mike, the only one on the internet this week that was honest. You came out and you said you missed on your evaluation of Bryce Young. You're the only one who spoke honestly this week when this happened.
And by the way,
I saw people people trying to say like that it was they still believe. It's like, come on, we have to look in the mirror on this one.
I will say, it could
turn around, but it's not going to look like what anyone thought it was going to look
like.
Right,
and that's fair. Like, we are in this world though where Baker Mayfield's been rejuvenated and Geno Smith's been rejuvenated, and years ago Rich Gannon came out of nowhere and became an MVP, and Brad Johnson. Like, we used to when the late Dr. Eager, because he's got this incredible brain for the history of the NFL, and he would list all these quarterbacks who had these late developing careers, and maybe, I don't know, I'm not saying we're getting back to that, but we've seen more of that maybe in recent years than we did over the last decade. So who knows? Not to say that Bryce Young's going to be, a top 8 quarterback in a few years, but yeah, we'll see what happens maybe in a new landing spot.
I will say the other thing that was funny is that, the reports from Jake Laser, et cetera, it sounds like even the Texans preferred Bryce Young to CJ Stroud. Like, the team that got it right by getting the elite quarterback from that class sounds like they preferred the other guy and just never managed to make that happen.
Yeah, I have this terrible, god-awful PFF mock draft simulator mock that I did for the Texans that people quote tweet like once a week because it had Bryce Young going to them. It had Quentin Johnston going to them. There's like real low-hanging fruit on guys who look like just ass right out the gate, right? But I always want to respond, and I won't respond because I'm not like that petty, but I just want to be like, I never would have had the chance. This might have been the Texans' board too. You have no clue. Right. They didn't get the chance to because they drafted number 2 and 3 overall. Bryce Young wasn't on the board, and Will Anderson was on the board. If I was drafted number 2 and 3 overall, I would have had CJ Stroud and Will Anderson too. So I would have had the same Texans board. So it is what it is. That's how it went down. It's like you just don't know these teams' boards.
Yeah.
A lot of people may have agreed. There might have been 32 teams actually that had Bryce Young number 1 on their boards. We actually don't know.
Right. And to be clear, like, we had a message from the chat pop up here before being like, the guy was pressured 4 times and still looked horrendous. Like, how do you not blame Bryce Young? To be clear, he has played terribly. Like, nobody's saying Bryce Young has been fantastic back there. He's being let down by the support system. Bryce Young has been awful. The question is simply how much of that is a product of his environment, the support system, the coaching, the structure. Like, it's why has he been this bad? And I think there's a very good argument to be made that had he had, the kind of runway of a Carson Palmer, you're going to sit for a whole year, we're going to work this through, we're going to build everything around you before he was thrown out there, he would have looked like a different quarterback as he did in college. So that's the argument we're making. Mike, we have you on just to talk quarterbacks and receivers. We have a fun segment that we started here, which we think you might like to be a part of. It's called Us versus the Shouty Shows, where we play a clip by somebody like Stephen A. Smith saying something like Stephen A. Smith says, and then we react to it. It's the first time we've heard it, and we do it on the fly. Would you like to be part of the Shouty Show segment?
I would love to. I've suggested stuff like this. I actually suggested a segment on our show called Second Take, where we debate exactly what they debated on First Take, but actually be reasonable about it.
Yeah.
And they said we can't too much intermedia conflict. They shy away from here. So I'll be a part of it though.
We're taking it head on.
We lean into that.
Now the fun part of this, Mike, is we haven't heard these clips yet. This will be the first time that we hear them. Instant reaction. So you good? You got a few minutes to play this game here?
Let's do it.
All right.
Yeah.
We'll play the clip. We'll let Mike react first.
You get the first take.
Perfect.
All right. Us against the Shouty Shows. Let's go.
Carolina, at best, y'all might win 4 games. With Bryce Young, without Bryce Young. We brought you in this offensive coach to help you, and you're giving up on me in 2 weeks? And you basically saying it's you, Bryce Young, it ain't me in 2 weeks? That's disrespectful to the young fella, and that's not helping the young fella confidence-wise or not. I promise you, Bryce, because I've been benched. Bryce Young is probably sitting in his locker right now, like probably calling his agent, I want out of here.
James Jones from the facility, FS1, if you're listening. Mike?
Bryce was terrible. You can't defend Bryce in this situation, unfortunately. As much as I loved Bryce Young as a prospect, this was the right call. He was hurting himself out there and only looking worse. I do think there's a world where the mental break, the kind of like get it all out of your system that can lead to a path to success, but banging his head against the wall for the rest of the season was not a path to success. And I will say the facility is a goddamn travesty. The 4 people on that booth, it's like they put like 4 Stephen A. Smiths, right? Like it's a booth that's just everyone trying to outdo each other in who could have the hottest take.
That's why we do
If
this.
you watch that show, I need like a profile on the watchers, like the people who are regular viewers of that show and what their day-to-day lives look like, because I have serious questions.
That's the thing that we don't know about the Bryce Young benching. We don't actually know, because before it happened, we theorized the mental break. We theorized, what if we just don't see him again until week 10, right? Because, again, Andy Dalton's not the future of the Panthers. Bryce Young could still be, theoretically. Like, what if it literally is like 6 to 8 weeks off and then put him back in? We don't know that for sure, or if he's literally done as a Panther.
Yeah, I don't think he's done as a Panther, right? Because his contract's guaranteed for the next 2 years. Yeah. And you know, someone might trade for him. I know a lot of people are saying Miami should trade for him, what they did with Tua in the rehab, whatever. And they're obviously, with Tua's contract, they're not going to have like a lot of fiscally responsible options to make if he does end up retiring. But I think there's a world where you just kind of say, hey, Bryce, like, you're here. You're a part of this team.
Right.
You got 2 more years to figure it out. Right.
It is.
And do what it takes and reset mentally. So I think that's what we'll see ultimately. I think that he's there for the next 2 years, maybe the backup, but that's what we see.
I think it's a reasonable argument to make to like all the grown-ups in the building to be like, look, it was not going to get better from here. Like, there's no way Bryce Young was going to come out of the other side of this by continuing to start for the next 6 weeks. We had to sit him down, but we can still argue, look, he can be the guy. We'll develop him from the sideline. Like, there's work to be done, and he's not done, right? We don't have to cut bait and get rid of him right now. We just had to make this move happen. I think everybody, whether it's teammates, whether it's Bryce Young, everybody should be able to at least accept that as a reasonable argument, even if you don't ultimately believe it'll be the case.
Yes, it's kind of like what I said about, sitting your number 1 overall pick out the gate. It's just like, flat out tell people he's not ready. Like, right. He's not ready. He's out there not ready to play football. And that's like, when that's the case, everyone in the locker room knows it, right? They're not out there being like, because the other side is if he is supposedly ready, then that means that it's everyone else's fault, right? And then like everyone else is pointing fingers at everyone else when, I think they're better than last year. A lot of guys are playing better football than they did a year ago on the offensive side of the ball. There are better players out there, but it is at the end of the day Bryce Young's fault. So like when a guy's playing to that caliber, if it was any other position, they'd be benched, right? You wouldn't be throwing a cornerback out there who's just getting torched play after play. You'd put the backup in. So I think it's like any other position. You put the backup in because Andy Dalton's, quite easily better than him right now.
Yeah. Really quick, now that you mentioned that, Emmanuel Forbes, the undersized corner, same draft class. That was the draft class of like size exceptions, right, Mike? And
none of which
those are 2 of them that did not work.
Tank Dell.
Okay.
Ivan Pace.
Other guys are working. All right, let's get to the second Shouty Show segment here.
And I was looking because somebody told me there was a city in Texas called Alice, Texas. Alice, Texas. I said, where is it? I never heard of it. And then I spotted it at AT&T Stadium yesterday. All you got to do is take the D off of Dallas, and there you got it. The Alice Cowboys.
Are the Cowboys from Alice? That was Stephen A. Smith for those listeners who did not recognize the voice.
If you don't recognize the voice, I'm actually proud of you. You've avoided some amazing content over the years. But like, I worry when I hear clips like that. I worry about my future in this business because I don't think I get that excited if I won the lottery. And he's getting that excited over calling it Alice, Texas, and that's just what it takes to reach that level sometimes. And I don't know if I have that in me, sadly.
I hate it so much.
And you're a former actor, you know? You're a Bachelorette star. You've been an actor.
It's reality television.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Reality.
Reality.
It's all real.
I apologize.
Yeah.
I mean, I got to say, the defensive
love that
tackles.
segment.
The defensive tackles were kind of soft the other day. They got pushed
I'm
around.
a Saints believer. I think it's the Saints. Everyone's going to look like that against Saints. Their house.
They were. I mean, I was so down on the Saints coming into the season because of the offensive line. Were you? How surprised are you by the way the Saints have played through two games here?
Oh, I mean, with everyone else, I didn't think. But it's Clint Kubiak, man. What he's doing is impressive. Like, it's truly like some of the most impressive offensive coordinating. I mean, when you score 15 straight times, when no one stops you, literally no one stopped him yet, for the first team offense, yeah, that's impressive. But just what they're doing is, to me, they're marrying like early 2000s, late 90s, like Shanahan, pure zone, and then they're mixing it with, you know, two wide receivers, heavy sets, and they're mixing it with just these like crossing, they're mixing with like the jet motion, the end around stuff that like to keep defenses on their heels, and then they just have like 4-3 guys on the outside, so it's dangerous. It's tough to stop, and that O-line's playing their butts off in the running game at least, and there's no one's made a pass. So yeah, I think we'll see when someone forces them to like actually drop back pass and go 5 out, but no one has yet. So yeah, if you're a Saints fan, you're happy as hell.
Just to update you, Mike, the reunion show we're currently doing right now, you have brought the highest level of stream watchers we've had live since we've been doing this. So Mike Renner,
needle mover.
You're the Stephen A. Smith. You bring the people.
On a Wednesday, right? Just on a Wednesday.
I think total, right? That's what
On
he's
a
saying.
Wednesday.
I didn't get the word
Hey.
here. Maybe.
Love it. Did we ever,
Okay,
how many,
no, on a Wednesday.
was there ever a time, what was it? It was 2017 when this was like us three was like the stock show, right?
Yeah.
We did a few stock shows.
Yeah.
Outside of like, we used to do like some one-offs during draft and after that, but
20,
stock booth.
Yeah.
2016.
It was like,
you and Sam did it for a big chunk of 2016 because I was doing more college stuff, right? And but Zach and I would do the big time throwcast, I believe. And then in 17 we were doing. Remember, we would like go to like the local establishments around Cincinnati and record some
that's
of our
Queen City Radio.
Yeah.
Ah,
That's right. We did it at
Great
Queen City, right next door over here.
Yeah.
So yeah, we it was the 3-way like preview shows and all that stuff. It was you were a co-host to the show previously.
This was the booth. This was the 3-man booth.
that's
the Tony
why if
Kornheiser
you guys
booth.
had won that one award, I was expecting it in the mail because I had appeared on a few that year.
Absolutely. Yeah.
All right.
Sadly, we got beaten by proper podcasts.
We do have a. Let's just handle the question in the chat really quick. Does Mike still believe in Tanner McKee?
Yeah, I mean, did you see Hurts on Monday night? I think there's a quarterback controversy brewing in Philadelphia,
Well,
at least from my eyes.
Can McKee do the tush push? Is that? I think he's got the size for it.
No, dude, he's too tall.
What's his
that
squat?
guy can't get low enough to
What's
tush
his
push.
squat?
But
He
think
could
of
just
all,
do the outstretched arm. I
Yeah,
think if he
that's
gets
true.
the ball,
think of
he
all
could
the
just stick it
development.
over the line of scrimmage.
Think of all the development that Tanner McKee is getting from the sideline while all these other young quarterbacks get murdered actually out on the field. He's learning his ass off from the sideline right now.
Yeah, like 3 more years, and he'll be, Geno Smith, Aaron Rodgers.
Some impressive
I think
preseason
that's the
games.
trajectory he's on.
All right.
He's a preseason king, though. He's been dialing up.
Stephen A. losing his mind over the Dallas Cowboys. Mike says no, it's not the Cowboys, it's the Saints. Let's get to the third piece from the Shouty Shows here.
And I know it's weird because Sirianni's got a great record, but he makes his 4th down decisions like a blackjack player that alternates hitting on a 12 against a 2 based on feel of the deck. And then at the end of games, he makes incomprehensibly bad calls, which is one of the reasons the Eagles in their last 8 games, 3 times have led in the final 2 minutes and lost.
Nick Wright on the call there. I will say, of the Shouty Show people, Nick does the most research.
I was literally going to say the same thing. I was like, Nick will come with support for takes.
Yeah.
Now, sometimes the support is like fake, and obviously he's not prone to, the most coherent, logical train of thought from the support to take. But this one I kind of agree with. But I think that fourth down at the end was objectively not Nick Sirianni's persona, right? The whole machismo, I'm a bully, middle finger to the other sideline sort of persona that he puts out there. That's real. Why not pound the rock twice on that third and fourth downs? That was the obvious call there to me. Why not even go for it on that fourth down? I think that was even after the drop, so that maybe you don't hang your best player out to be a scapegoat if you lose the game. So, yeah, Nick Wright, hey, Shouty Shows, they get a hit every now and then. Blind, what is it? Blind, I can't think of the thing. Blind squirrel. There we go. Finds a nut. That's a nut right there.
Well done. You're not. See, that's why people like you. You're not a cliche machine. You don't even know the cliche.
No,
so how
exactly.
could you be a cliche machine here?
That's a great point.
I love how you
I
love how you came to the conclusion that Sam and I talk about all the time. Like, even if millions of dollars were on the table, I don't know if I could do what Stephen A.
Dude,
and Skip do.
What was the one I was telling you the other day? Mad Dog. Mad Dog had this rant. I'm like, how does he not give himself an aneurysm getting this hepped up over whatever idiot thing he was arguing about? I'm like, I genuinely don't think I have that in me. I can't do that every Monday or whatever. I would have a stroke.
Yeah. I feel between the two of you, though, Sam, I think you could, if forced to. So, you're getting paid. They say
if
$10
one of us
million,
had
you have to
yeah.
do this. You could. Steve, I just you would laugh at yourself. You would midway through. You couldn't keep it together. You would laugh.
So I think
Sam, I think you could deliver.
I'm too
if
honest.
You really believe.
I would pause and be like, I don't really believe this, but here we go.
So you're right. What would actually happen is I would be able to do it, but I would give myself the aneurysm I'm wondering how Mad Dog never gets. That would be the problem. I would have 4 months in me, and then a blood vessel in my brain would just burst, and that would be it.
Better at losing their mind, Steve or Sam. Let us know in the chat, and we will see who wins this. Mike, it's been a pleasure. Would love to do it again, especially when we talk draft and everything. Tell everybody where they can find you now.
Yeah, find me pushing the pile 4 times a week, 9:30 a.m. Monday through Thursday. I have a CBS Sports Network show that I do on Mondays at 1 p.m. and Thursdays at 1 p.m. on CBS Sports Network.
You're on
Eastern
TV?
Time. Matt Ryan joins us on Mondays.
You're
I'm on
TV?
TV. Matt Ryan, Matty Ice, former MVP,
go.
joins us, breaks down quarterbacks. On Thursdays, we have Leger Duzable comes on the show, or Brian McFadden. They come down, we break up the matchups. So we got all that going down, and you can find me on Twitter at Mike Renner _. I post a lot of bad takes, apparently, from what my followers say.
Love it.
They're solid, man. I'm proud of you, Mike. You're all grown up and on TV.
On time.
I can't believe you're working 4 days a week right now. We'll see how long that lasts, but I'm proud of you. I'm proud of you, man. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Steve. No, it's great. It's been great. So very excited and happy for you guys. Love what you guys have built for yourselves over there, and happy for all your success.
Thanks, Mike. You too.
Thanks, Mike. We'll talk to you soon.
Take it easy.
The great Mike Renner.
The great Mike Renner. Absolutely.
Oh, that was fun.
Yeah, like a legitimate reunion show.
It was.
It used to be, as he said, that was the show for a while. It was me, you, and Mike doing the PFF NFL podcast. Now Mike's away at CBS on TV, all grown up, all doing his gig, having tremendous success there. And you and I have got this show over here at the 33rd team.
Yeah, well, we poke fun at Mike all the time, but always love talking football with him. And I like coming in on a Monday morning because I don't know what you saw on Sunday.
Right.
I don't know what you're going to say. I don't know what Mike's always going to say.
Yeah.
He brings something different to the table that I appreciate, something that I haven't seen before. So that's why I think those are our best conversations, when you hear something maybe you weren't expecting.
And, I think all of the people that do this that are good at it understand nobody is even close to batting 1,000, right? Everyone screws up. Everyone makes mistakes. And Mike is perfectly happy to acknowledge when he makes a mistake, say, hey, I got this one wrong. And even look at reasons why. I mean, he told you, right? He was looking at Bryce Young Alabama tape. He wasn't just saying, I got this wrong. He was already looking for why he got it wrong. But I think that's a smart thing for all of us to do, is when we make a mistake, acknowledge it.
Well, if you love showcasing your NFL knowledge with some skin in the game, Locker is a must-have in your gaming arsenal. Locker contests combine the strategic elements of DFS with the thrill of sports betting into an exciting new game format. Simple to enter and easy to learn, Locker contests allow users to test their wits by answering questions in real time during live NFL games with the goal of being to accurately predict the upcoming action on the field. By correctly answering straightforward game-based multiple choice questions such as which Jets player will have the most receiving yards on the next drive or what will be the result of the Patriots' next drive, users can earn points and move up the leaderboard in pursuit of cash prizes. Locker offers both free-to-play games with cash jackpots as well as a variety of real money contests featuring different types of payout structures, including top-heavy contests and 50-50 contests. There are contests for every NFL game on the 2024 schedule, so users can pick and choose when to play, whether it's all the primetime games, strictly the games of your favorite team, or any combination of your choice. Many contests are hosted by Locker's expansive partner network of athletes, celebrities, and influencers. And with chat functionality embedded directly in the app, users can directly engage with the contest host as well as other participants. So this dynamic and integrated social experience allows users to celebrate wins, lament bad beats, and talk smack as the action heats up and the game plays out. If you sign up for Locker through 33rd Team, use code 33rd and you'll get a $50 deposit match. So join today and discover an entirely new and unique way to cash in on your NFL viewing experience. Again, it's 33rd Team. Or through 33rd Team, use the code 33rd, you get a $50 deposit match. Come join Sam and I and come play along. All right, we got a couple mailbag questions.
Yep.
Before we wrap it up
You
here.
can still send us email. We have, I never remember what our mailbag email address is anymore.
Check the
mic at the33rdteam.com.
Yeah, it's pretty easy to remember.
It is pretty easy. Now that I've actually listened to it as opposed to just letting you say it, maybe I'll remember it next time.
Check the mic at the33rdteam.com. We've already got these coming in. I don't know if this came in during the preseason. I believe it did. But John says the bet is Quentin Johnston will have a 1,000-yard season with Herbert as Harbaugh takes over. Now, we're 2 weeks into the season. John's put coffee on the line. I don't care if it was week 18. I would still probably take the bet because we can win some coffee. So we'll do it. We accept Quentin Johnston coming off of a 2-touchdown game.
Yep.
Just last week.
Now only 89 yards across the two games.
According
Touchdowns are better than the yards so far.
Yeah. The problem with this is Justin Herbert might not reach 1,000 yards. I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, he's on pace for about 1,900.
Correct. That's not ideal. The Chargers so far through 2 games have had 3 wide receivers catch footballs. They're not spreading it around at all. So
this will be fun to see what happens. Like as game flow changes for the Chargers, how much they have to.
So on the one hand, he's got that part working for him, right? Like there's only 3 people they're going to throw the football to, and you're one of them. On the downside, they're only going to do that a couple of times a game. So if you don't catch it for 75 yards, you're not racking up big production.
All right, so yeah, we accept the Quentin Johnston bet, and we will we'll add that. We do have to get that all documented properly. We'll add that to our documentation.
I meant to say the Shouty Shows segment that I was expecting to come from Stephen A. Smith. He went on a giant rant about how Bryce Young was the worst number 1 pick of all time. You know, terrible, right? And it was doing the like over the top hyperbole, completely insane. And I was ready to push back.
You were ready for that.
I had it because he's not, right? Clearly not. Now, you can argue that the outcome has been worse than Jamarcus Russell. You can argue that. There was a period where Jamarcus Russell looked like maybe he was going to be the guy. However, Jamarcus Russell was also famously the guy that simply did not watch any tape whatsoever, to the point where they gave him fake tapes to watch. And he was like, I watched those blitz packages. They were great. Thanks. You know, so when that's a guy, that's a problem. That's never going to work out. Also, and he didn't clarify, you know, if you wanted to say the worst number 1 overall pick that wasn't affected by injury, that's a stronger argument to make. But Keanu Carter was the number 1 overall pick as a running back, and on his 3rd carry, I think, tore his knee and was never the same guy again. He had like 1,100 yards in the NFL as a number 1 overall pick running back. That's about as bad as it's humanly possible to go as a top pick.
I mean, even if you just go to quarterbacks, and can we remember Alex Smith's career really quick?
Well, how it started, certainly.
How it started, right? And it took a little bit of time, but year 1 touchdown, 11 picks.
Yeah.
Pro Football Reference has an AV, approximate value number, which is usually, he had a negative number. Like they don't give out negative numbers for this stat. It was negative. I've never even seen it. I just clicked on his page and I'm seeing that right now.
Yeah.
The next year, 16 touchdowns and 16 picks. It looked like he was showing signs of life the following year. By year 3, passer rating of 57 and in 7 starts, and injured. 2008, injured. Alex Smith didn't show real good signs of life until his 5th year.
Right.
And it took till 6, 7, his 7th year where you were like, wow, Alex Smith's a pretty good NFL quarterback.
Yeah.
So, there's more and more evidence of this just takes time.
Yeah.
And that doesn't work well in the Shouty Show era here. It doesn't work well for this.
I agree with Renner a lot that I think we're going to see the pendulum swing all the way back to these guys. Like, you're not putting a rookie quarterback out right away unless you have to, unless something's gone wrong. Like, we're going to start slow playing these guys headed soon.
All right, second question from a guy named Mike. Loved the Wednesday episode with Dean Blandino, especially when someone dropped the cool factor comment about picking up the flag and referenced the legendary Robert Hunt, quote, screen moment from a few years ago. Got me thinking. Why haven't we seen a trick offensive lineman screen where there's an extra offensive lineman on the field? I mean, we've seen it work with Robert Hunt. That wasn't planned. We've got the tush push down for short yardage. But picture this: a 6th offensive lineman on a tight end screen near the red zone, or in the red zone near the end zone. Get the big guy the ball in open space. Let him rumble. Wouldn't that be the next big thing? Bonus points if it's a former tight end with just enough athleticism to pull it off. So the question is, if you could pick any offensive lineman to run this glorious screen, who would it be? Trent Williams, Jordan Mailata, Penei Sewell. Who do you think? Appreciate all the good content.
I think that last part is the critical part. The former tight end thing. One of the reasons this doesn't happen is because most offensive linemen are actually not great athletes in space.
This did happen in the 2014 AFC Championship, Patriots-Colts. Nate Solder, former tight end, who I had always expected the Patriots
to use the Mike Vrabel thing.
Yeah, to use in the red zone, caught like a 17-yard screen for a touchdown.
Right.
And they waited till like year 5 of his career to do it. So it's happened before.
But like you see, there's that famous play where the 49ers put Trent Williams in motion before the snap and just had him murder the left the left side of the Packers defense
sweep it to Trent.
Right. But the point being, I saw somebody else do that this week, right? With the same idea. And the left tackle basically just like fell over at the line of scrimmage into his own blockers. Most offensive tackles, when they're asked to do skill position things, do not look great at it, right? So I think you're actually picking from quite a small selection of offensive linemen that could even handle something like this. That's before you get to, can they hold a football securely without launching it outside off as soon as somebody comes near to try and tackle them. That being said, we've speculated before, anyone that has seen Jordan Mailata's rugby highlights, right? That guy has experience carrying a ball and running the hell over people. And whether you want to use him as a 6th offensive lineman on a screen or whatever, or what we've talked about, you could design like a lateral play where, it's like a wide receiver bubble screen, except instead of taking it up between DBs, he then pitches it back to Mailata, who's sweeping in behind and now has open real estate rumbling at 365 pounds with a background in rugby. Mailata is the guy you want doing it, and I want to see that happen.
Mailata is absolutely the guy. All for it. One sneaky limitation to all of these plans is the rule: if a lineman is eligible on one play, he cannot become ineligible on the next play.
But you don't need him to be eligible for the lateral play.
I know. For the lateral play, it's fine. But part of the reason why we don't see offensive linemen become tight ends all the time is they can't go from tight end, then become ineligible at tackle the next play. They have to sit out a play.
Which is why it happens in the end zone effectively, because theoretically you're scoring on
you expect you're going to score, right? But you can't do it on back-to-back plays. I don't know if the 2-minute warning or if like a timeout breaks that up. I would have to check the rules, but it's to try to not let you deceive and be like, oh, he's a tight end here, and then becomes ineligible on the next play.
But I think there's a whole world to be had, whether it's Mailata. Kelsey would have been really interesting. Jason, you met the movement he has in the open field, and they have him pulling a lot into open space. Imagine if instead of pulling to go locate a linebacker, he was pulling to take the lateral, and then off he goes.
I used to say Kelsey. I mean, when Kelsey was pulling, it was like it looked like a linebacker running 4.5 in space. Like he was so fast getting out there. All right, the last one. On the reaction show Monday night, is that when we started to bring up the ginger theory?
Yes.
Is that when it came back?
Yep.
Again? The ginger theory. Sam Darnold, this is from Ryan. Sam Darnold won't make it to his 3-week streak because Bryce Young couldn't hold up his end of the bargain. We've got Andy Dalton starting this week, stealing the ginger power away. Bet the Texans hard this week. Steve would anyway, since they're favorites.
Yeah. I think
there's all the favorites last week. It didn't work.
Didn't work, huh?
But Ginger Theory, explain it again really quick again for the listeners who didn't catch it Monday night.
We had an email in to the mailbag address years ago that effectively presented the theory that there is only so much ginger talent to go around in the NFL, and only one person tends to take all of it at the same time, right? So this was when Carson Wentz played at his best. No other gingers were playing well. When Andy Dalton had his amazing 2015 season, no other gingers were playing well. One guy seems to occupy all of the ginger talent at any given moment. Now Andy Dalton is coming back into his starting position. Does he therefore take it all back?
And we've been classifying Darnold as a potential ginger. Like he was kind of in that boat.
Is there anyone else that would have it if he wasn't?
It also worked out narrative-wise because the 4-game streak that I think Darnold had was the same time that Wentz fell off the map. Like it was just a fun theory that seemed to work. So now Andy Dalton's coming back out.
He is the most ginger. So if it was a potency thing, he would have the best rights. He would have the best case to having all the ginger
Didn't
talent.
this come out Monday night? Like he can't steal it though. Like if Darnold does really have it, he can't lose it.
I don't know that. No, I think because it has been stolen previously. It's gone from one to the other. Like Dalton has the best claim to the throne by virtue of being the most ginger person.
So we're expected
immediate switching. That we've had. Darnold is now done. It's gone.
So we're gonna break down. We're gonna do our preview show tomorrow, as we always do. We're gonna go game by game, all 16 games, every Thursday, 10:30 a.m. And we're gonna be breaking down Vikings Texans. And one of the coolest stories about this one is we think Brian Flores may have answers to the Shanahan scheme, and we're gonna break it all down tomorrow. Flores gets to face the Shanahan scheme 2 weeks in a row. Right. This should be to the advantage of the Vikings, right? We just shut them down last week or beat them last week. Now we get Bobby Slowick, same system. We're going to go X's and O's and all this stuff, and then it's going to all come back down to, well, Sam Darnold's going to lose the ginger talent, so take the Texans.
Yeah.
Okay.
Pretty much.
A little preview of tomorrow's show where we will break down all the games. Anything else on the ginger talent?
No, other than
just keep an eye on it.
I believe in it. I believe the Red Rifle is going to ride again and immediately resume his place as the
last time we saw him 360 yards against the Seahawks
as King Ginger.
Is the ginger thing it's only QBs? Yeah, we have not seen this theory in action for non-QBs.
But also, who else is ginger that's of another position? Like, is Max Crosby a ginger, or has he just got a ginger beard?
That's a good question. We might need the listeners to do some research for this on this one.
Just flag potential gingers to it.
Can we get Anthony on this, please? We just start tagging players, yay or nay. Anyway, I think that's it for us today. Enjoyed having Renner on the show. Wednesday again. We get to mix it up a little bit, have different guests, talk about different topics, get a little bit deeper on some stuff. Tomorrow, though, very structured. Every single game gets their love. Previewing Week 3, it's always live, 10:30 a.m. right here on the YouTube channel. All right.
Yep.
Sound good? Thanks to everybody for tuning in. We'll see you again tomorrow with more. Check the mic.